Coming up in the Bahamas tonight, talks between the Prime Minister and BPSU President held yesterday. We'll tell you how close John Pinder came to getting salary and insurance demands met. The accused killer of murdered banker Stephen Sherman has a medical emergency in court today, and landmark legislation passed in the Senate overnight. All those stories and more straight ahead in the Bahamas tonight.
Covering the islands of the Bahamas, ZNS Network presents The Bahamas Tonight.
This portion of the news is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, I'm loving it.
Good evening and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, the National Report. I'm Keishla Adderley. Thanks for joining us. Topping the news this evening, Bahamas Public Service Union President John Pinder says he has some good news and some bad news after a 2.5-hour-long meeting with the Prime Minister on Wednesday. Pinder was looking to come away with insurance coverage and general salary increases for thousands of members comparable to the benefits in the recently signed contract between the government and Bahamas Union of Teachers. With a threat of industrial action looming after tense union talks 2 weeks ago, Prime Minister Ingram reportedly told Pinder his hands are tied by a tough economy.
Basically give us a reality check on the finances of the country and the state of affairs of the country. It was a very glooming picture. The bottom line is he indicated that the government is not in a position to give any general increases to the public service at this time.
That's the bad news. The good news is there are some benefits to look forward to.
What we were able to get him to do is to commit to at least adding another increment to each person's salary. And so the scales have been opened now by 3 increments.
And on the sore point of health insurance, Pinder says the Prime Minister told him that for now, the prescription drug plan and government clinics will have to suffice for members, but that he's considering insurance for one group.
He is speaking about the health insurance from a catastrophic illness point of view. So while he may not be able to cover everything, he's saying that those areas where we have members that work in high-risk jobs and high hazardous areas, that some level of insurance coverage would be looked at for them within the next 3-year period of the contract.
And though Pinder didn't exactly meet his target, he's happy about one victory, an assurance that will withstand the election no matter what the result.
We haven't signed off anything yet, but he is now committing to putting something in writing for us to sign off on as early as next week, and with a view of us at least knowing exactly what to look forward to in the next budget year. In the event there's a change of government, the next government coming in will have to look at that, and hopefully we'll be able to get some increased benefits where we cannot get any salary increases.
Now, Pinder says he'll go back to his members and see what feedback they may have following that meeting. Labor Minister Dion Folk spent the day back and forth between KFC's management and union leaders, trying desperately to reach some common ground. Meantime, the union is taking exception to comments made by KFC yesterday, blaming the lockout on the union and KFC's decision not to pay employees while the stores remain closed. Meantime, staff continues to stay on the clock outside the 9 restaurants. Clint Watson has this update on the developing story.
The Bahamas Hotel Catering and Allied Workers Union calling recent comments by KFC's management that the union is responsible for the lockout a bold-faced lie.
We categorically deny that, Clint. On Monday morning, about around 8:30, 9 o'clock, we got delivered at our office a communication from their attorneys who indicated that they canceled the recognition for us and Restaurants Bahamas. And our members then asked the management of the stores at the time what was going on. They could not or were not prepared to answer them, so they said they needed some answers. And the next thing we knew was management made a decision to close the stores.
Regarding negotiations, Wood says the company appears to be uncertain on what position it wants to take.
It seems as if every time we reach a particular position, they're trying to achieve something else. We understand the position of the company, and of course, like we said before, we have some concerns with what we would have saw in the financials because there's some intercompany relationship and cost that is associated that we can't verify, but we have some concerns with it. There's some monies that are owed to the company, okay? But we put our best foot forward through our membership to try to give the company some concession.
Wood says they've always been to the negotiating table and stand ready to hunker down to come up with a new agreement. He also noted that the latest rounds of meetings were not successful as the company wants to negotiate while the stores remain closed and employees unpaid.
Our contention is the stores were not closed because we were refusing to negotiate. We have always been negotiating. And our position is, listen, if we're going to negotiate, let's get the stores open so the people can get back to work, because you're saying that the employees sit in or had an illegal strike. The employees showed up for work every day prepared to work. Let's get the negotiation on, get the stores open, and be ready to go.
Many of the KFC employees have been with the company for more than 2 decades, building homes and educating their children on their salaries. They say to slash salaries at this point would shatter their financial stability. ZNS obtained a copy of the document drawn up by management, which reportedly would scale back benefits that employees were asked to sign if they want to continue working with KFC. The proposed salary scale will see significant cuts to weekly salaries. Cooks will take a cut of $95.50 per week. Customer service workers' pay will be dropped by $78.75 per week. Food service workers, $98 per week, and utility workers will be cut by $135.50 per week. Clint Watson, ZNS News.
The Senate adjourned sine die shortly after 1 a.m. today. Senators passed the last set of bills on the government's legislative agenda, including the Freedom of Information Act, which has to be debated in the House of Assembly, the Parliamentary Elections Act, and those 4 bills aimed at modernizing the system of payments in the country. 14 resolutions were also passed. Our Janaea Noel Ferguson has details.
Implementing it won't be easy, but the Freedom of Information Act will give the public access to information from government agencies. Senator John Delaney says this is something public servants will just have to get used to.
It's going to be a shakeup. No question about it. But people will conform. The public sector will be made to conform to this new way of thinking.
With 27 categories of information exempted, many records will still remain private, like information on national security, law enforcement, national economy, and records that reveal government deliberative processes. Here's another reason why records may not be revealed.
If its disclosure would reveal trade secrets, or if it contains information concerning the commercial interests of any person or organization, and the disclosure would prejudice those interests.
Now, the exemption of a record or any part thereof from disclosure shall not apply after the record has been in existence for 30 years, unless otherwise stated in the Act. Leader of Opposition Business Allison Maynard Gibson, though in support of the bill, shared this concern with regards to the Information Commissioner.
There is a question as to whether the rules of the public service and general orders, there is a question as to whether that person has true independence. And if we would like to see, as we do, this act to function as it is intended that it should function, we would only ask that consideration be given to appointing that person in a way that is truly independent.
The old Freedom of Information Act tabled in the House of Assembly was set to be implemented by July 1st of this year. However, Senator John Delaney says that the minister responsible will now have to issue the date, and after 18 months of implementation, the act will be subject to review. Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS News.
During debate on the Freedom of Information Act, the controversy over alleged corruption in the Bahamas Mortgage Corporation continued. Chairman Dr. Dwayne Sands tabled an Auditor General's report on the government agency during the PLP's term during the period 2002 through 2007. According to Sands, the report cited serious oversight and mismanagement of funds.
Where a $7 million loan, and this has been denied by the Honorable Shane Gibson, was agreed with the NIB in April 2007 as the government reacted to the corporation's deteriorating financial position. By this point, senior officials at the corporation confirmed that the program had essentially run out of funds, and its suspension was a necessity until further public funds were provided.
The report added that funds were also used to fund the PLP's urban renewal program. In defense of the former administration, Senator Jerome Fitzgerald thanked Sands for tabling the report, which he says finally clears former Housing Minister Shane Gibson of any wrongdoing.
There's nowhere in that document that talks about corruption. Nowhere in that document talks about hand the cookie jar. What it does point to, Madam President, is a very zealous Bahamian, I think the word he used was overambitious Bahamian minister who went and built a record number of homes in 5 years. 1,400 homes, Madam President, were built in 5 years.
Many of you have been wondering about what's happening with CLECO, the now defunct insurance agency, and so have members of the upper chamber. During last evening's session of the Senate, Senator Michael Halkitis called on the government to update policyholders on the status of the insurance company, which went belly up more than 2 years ago. Halkitis said that persons have followed the advice of the Prime Minister and have continued paying their premiums, with not much information released on the matter.
We are told that a buyer, there's something going on where a buyer is being sought and perhaps a buyer has been identified and that the process is ongoing. But sadly, the clients, the persons who are affected, they have not had the benefit of information where they can make a decision. Just yesterday, I think it was, or maybe the day before, one of our leading clergymen was in one of the major newspapers asking for information so that people can know what to do. And so on behalf of that young man and many others, Madam President, I would just like to appeal to the powers that be, to the government, to please provide an update